Okay, welcome back, everyone. Let's continue from where we finished off. And of course, it's been a very busy business week, all in the countdown to President Buhari's midterm report. This has happened, and some reactions we're getting to what we have since the week gets started. This morning, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the largest and the oldest Chamber of Commerce in Nigeria, issued a 4-paragraph statement from the office of the president of the LCCI, saying that the chamber commends the recently signed executive orders by the acting president, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. The statement went on to say that the LCCI believe that the executive orders will impact the ease of doing business, fast-track budgetary administration, as well as promote made in Nigerian products. So the chamber is asking the Buhari's administration to ensure that stipulated timelines are strictly adhered to by all the parties affected by the orders. One of the executive orders was that the Apapa ports should run 24 hours within 30 days. That is one of the timelines that was stipulated in the 3 executive orders. Others relate to how you open and register business online with a CACN. So we'll get to talk about that. And the chamber says it will monitor the performance and the implementation of these 3 executive orders by relevant MDAs, follow up compliance, and report feedback from the private sector players on an ongoing basis. So this is the first major statement from any business segment in Nigeria since that executive order was signed Thursday last week, May the 18th. Meantime, this morning, United Capital, one of the investment and securities firm in Nigeria, issued a 7-paragraph statement saying that yesterday's MPC decisions by the central bank gives an outlook light at the end of the tunnel. That's what the report concludes in the last paragraph. We got a lot to talk about the Buhari's midterm report, the economy and the market, how everything that happened in the last 24 months feed into the markets. And Johnson Chukwu, who is, of course, a certified stock trader and dealer, and is also the chief executive officer at Cowrie Asset Management, is live here in the studios. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for coming.
My pleasure.
Do you think we should do a midterm appraisal or assessment of this administration?
Absolutely. There's no reason why you should have a 4-year term. After 2 years, you shouldn't be able to look back and assess how you performed or how the government has performed. We should assess the government at all levels.
At all levels. Thank you. So let's look at this. For you, give us a summary of the last 2 years, if you want to put it together in 1 minute.
Well, it's been some victories and some great losses. If you have to put it together in one sentence. In the area of insurgency, in the area of fighting corruption, the government has done a relatively good job. In terms of the economy, the report cards are not pleasant to look at. And I think it's good that the government takes stock of what it has done on the economy so that it can sit up and address those challenges in the next 2 years.
By virtue of being a chartered stockbroker, a financial analyst, you also crunch the numbers. You talk to investors and you talk to CEOs of companies, whether listed or unlisted. You talk to investors within and outside Nigeria on a daily basis. They're interested in whether they are buying bonds or they're buying stocks or they should divest. You read corporate numbers all the time, annual reports and what have you. So you have a bad view of the economy and business. So if you look at the last 24 months, what's your summary of how all these have come together to impact on what you call wealth creation?
Well, of course, we've seen an economy that has contracted over time. So that means, and we've also seen an economy that has suffered high rate of inflation. High rate of inflation means that the purchasing power of your income has been eroded. So in terms of wealth creation, we've seen the wealth of Nigerians eroded over the past 2 years. In terms of growth in economic activities, we've seen a contraction. We saw a contraction of 1.58% in last year. And we saw a decline. Of course, if you look at when the government took over, the last GDP report of the previous government was a 2014 GDP, which was 6.25% growth, 6.22% growth. By this first year of this government, of course, the government was not fully accountable for that year, 2015. The GDP grew only by 2.78%. Its first full year of running the economy, the GDP contracted by 1.58%. So in terms of GDP figures, the government has not done quite well. In terms of inflation, the government took over, the current government took over at the time when inflation rate was about 9%, single digit. We're talking about inflation rate of 17.24% as at the end of April. In terms of unemployment figures as at April 2015 was 7.5%. As at the end of the third quarter of 2016, unemployment figure was 13.9%. So these are objective parameters. So the key challenge for the government is not to whip over what has gone past or what is past, is to sit up and say, how do we address those areas of failure? It's like you're looking at your report card of your child. You have a choice to start whipping that your child has not done well, or sit back and say, look, I'm going to commit 2 hours of my evening every day to personally teach the child, and also possibly get other teachers to support your effort. The key thing for me is that how do we turn around the economy? How do we reverse the failings of the past? How do we improve our own rates so that as to compensate for the slow start of the government as it relates to the economy? But in other areas, the government has, you can actually give them pass mark. Like I said, in the case of insurgents, only about 2 or 3 weeks ago, they recovered about 2 of the lost, of the kidnapped Chibok girls. That is something to celebrate. We have seen situation whereby corruption has gone to the backyard. Previously, at some point, it was to your face. It didn't matter who you were. They will demand from you, and people will not tell you to go to hell because you had nobody to report to. But today they know that, look, you can actually make a report, and somebody will be, we have to pay for it. So in terms of anti-corruption war, yes, it's been use of brute force, but there has been some level of accomplishment in that area. I hope they will also improve on that to put some systems in place to make sure that this fight is enduring.
Do you think that, well, this is an obvious question, but of course, the Niger Delta quietness, the reduction, very drastic reduction in pipeline vandalism, and the insurgency that the previous administration, finance minister says will cost about 0.5% decline in GDP, now that we have that in Akiti, do you think these have a way of filtering into the economic base?
You know, yeah, basically what we're looking at is that what has happened in the past 2 years.
Yes.
And then we also say, having studied what happened in the past 2 years, how do we take lessons from that and make sure we build to make a stronger economy? Take, for instance, the issue of the Niger Delta. In the first quarter of 2016, the oil production was 2.03 million barrels a day. The first quarter of 2017, oil production was 1.83 million barrels a day. Between first quarter of 2016 and until the third quarter, the fourth quarter of 2016, where oil production was only about 1.7 million barrels, we were seeing a consistent decline in oil production because the policies of government seemed to have worsened the feeling of the inhabitants of Niger Delta. But I'm happy that the government has made a U-turn and adopted a reapproachment method, which is said, look, the key thing is we're doing an appraisal of what they've done, what they did well, and what they didn't do well. That's the reason why you do appraisals. So areas where you didn't do well, you look at, why didn't I do well? What can I do to improve on what I did previously? Even areas where you've done well, you look at, why did I achieve this result? Can I improve on what I have achieved? In the case of the Niger Delta approach of the government, initially it was a gumbo strategy. We didn't work. We exacerbated the crisis in the Niger Delta. Led to, at some point, production dropping to about 1.4 million barrels per day. But I'm happy that they've changed, and we're seeing a gradual improvement. There's an improvement between fourth quarter of 2016 and first quarter of 2017, because like I said, in the fourth quarter of 2016, we had oil production about 1.7 million barrels. Now we're talking about oil production of 1.83 million barrels. I'm hoping that with the new, the restoration of some of the pipelines, that we should go back to about 2.22 million barrels. And that means we will learn from our mistakes of the first half of the government tenure. And then we're going to build and make sure those mistakes do not repeat themselves.
Let's get back into the market, because you're a market person, and you've brilliantly explained and tried to dissect and put what is in our inbox and what is in our outbox of the president. So, as far as the market is concerned, whether I'm buying stocks or I'm buying mutual funds or I'm buying fixed income, treasury bills and bonds, in the last 2 years. If you look at your portfolio, Mr. Johnson Joko, would you say you've made money or you've lost or your portfolio has just been sitting there?
Well, last year...
I don't talk about the MMM. I'm not talking about that as part of the portfolio.
Well,
assets. Yes.
Well, last year, I think most people didn't make much money. The capital market closed with a negative index growth. But this year, in the past 2-3 weeks, we've seen an improvement in market index. We've seen a recovery year-to-date market performance about 4.5%.